we made the point a few times already. Why does it say Moshe received the Torah? Why doesn't it say Hashem gave Moshe the Torah, etc., etc., etc.? And the answer is because at the end of the day, an exchange between Almighty God, who is totally spiritual, eternal, and a person made up of flesh and blood is impossible. In the equation, there's no common language. So Hashem could give Moshe the Torah, but Moshe couldn't receive it. Moshe could only receive what he could receive. So the Mishnah says, Moshe Kibbutz Torah Emi Sinai. Right? And what happened then? In these words, Yeshua, and he gave it to Yeshua. Right? That is a different verb now. He transmitted to Yeshua. Now, what did he transmit to Yeshua? All that he knew, all that he had. Right? As we said, he couldn't get it all. Whatever he got, he gave Yeshua. And Yeshua became the privileged Talmud, the heir of Moshe Rabbeinu. You know why? Because he mastered it all. Whatever Moshe knew, Yeshua knew. Right? Now, how is that possible? So the Chazal tell us, because Yeshua was a student who never left the tent of his teacher. In other words, he accompanied Moshe 24 hours a day. And this is the concept in Judaism to this day. It's called, it tells to give shiurim on it, but it's a well-known concept. It's called Shimusha Shel Torah. Shimusha Shel Torah doesn't mean knowledge of Torah. Shimusha Shel Torah means experiencing Torah. If you are close to a person who's regarded to be as very special, a Rebbe, a Talmud Chacham, a spiritual giant, and you are totally committed to him, you learn from watching him, you learn from talking to him, you learn from seeing him eat, seeing him sleep, seeing him carrying on with the day of with every area of life. That's called Shiur Torah, and that's a big factor in growing up. A big factor in becoming someone is where do you know, where do you get a Masorah from? Where does any Jew get a Masorah from? The answer is from his Rebbeim. And so when you have a Rebbe and you stick with him and treat him as your friend, your teacher, your mentor, Yeshua's in that category. Now, he was a youngster who didn't leave the tent, hence whatever Moshe told him, he knew. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't just teach Yeshua. Moshe Rabbeinu taught Klal Yisrael. So he taught the people of Klal Yisrael. One person was able to take it all. That was Yeshua. The reason we mentioned. Hence, Yeshua became his heir. Yeshua became his heir because he had that total commitment to a Rebbe that made it possible for him to receive so much more than anyone else did. But Moshe Rabbeinu taught Torah to Klal Yisrael, especially Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Torah Sheba'al Peh which Moshe received when Hashem, nobody knew it. No one knew it except Moshe. So Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching that the whole Klal Yisrael, but Yeshua became the expert. So the Mishnah says, Moshe Kibbutz Torah in Sinai, Masorah Yeshua. What did he give you? Next words, Yeshua the Zakanim. And Yeshua gave it over to the elders, the Zakanim. Now, who are they? What does that mean? What did he give them? What did they receive? So the Meforshim say they received whatever Yeshua had. They too, you see, if you look carefully, it doesn't say what the Zakanim said. It doesn't say what the Nevi'im said. They didn't say anything. Why didn't they say anything? Because they received all that whatever they received, they handed over totally, and that was unusual, rare. It didn't happen for too long. It can only happen for a couple of generations. So, in other words, Yeshua gave over the Zakanim. What did he give over? Whatever he had. That was everything. And Zakanim to the Nevi'im. Again, doesn't tell us what they taught. Nothing mentioned their name. There's no Torah in their name. The Nevi'im is Sarua, Danchik Nesach, and the Nevi'im get over to the people we call the Danchik Nesach, the members of the Great Assembly that we talked about in the last couple of shiurim. Now, interesting. So the Danchik Nesach were very special people, very, very special people, but they didn't get it all. They didn't get it all. Why didn't they get it all? Because they were now living in a different period. In the period before the Anshe Nesach, the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And when the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, what went with it? Nevuah, prophecy. The idea that the Rebbe Shalom sent us Nevi'im, who told us exactly what he wanted us to know, it came to an end. So when it came to an end, they couldn't be the same. It couldn't be the same level. And therefore the Anshe Knesset Agdola found themselves in a new position, in an inferior position, where they didn't have the tradition of those that preceded them, and they were facing a period of Jewish history, dispersion all over the world. Jews are going to go further and further away from the center, from Yerushalayim, and with what? With what? With what? Whatever the Anshe Knesset Agdola had. Now, we said the other day, if you remember, but what made the Anshe Knesset Agdola so very special, that Hirsch uses the words, they were the great men of the great assembly. He used to put the word in great. Why were they great? Because they saw something the others didn't see. Yes, it was diminished. It wasn't the same. They didn't have the nevuah that was before them. They couldn't have the clarity generation before them. But you know what they had? They had an optimism. They had faith, they had hope, and therefore they called the Anshe Knesset Agdola. And what just to repeat, what was their optimism? When Moshe Rabbeinu described Hashem, and only Moshe Rabbeinu could describe Hashem. How did he go? Now, my grandson Moshe has been teaching the brachos of Shemona Esrei on a little tape every day, and on that tape he said the first bracha is called Ovis. And what makes the bracha of Ovis special? It's so special that according to the din, you didn't have kavanah, you should repeat. You didn't have kavanah in the first bracha, you have to repeat it. The rest of Shemona Esrei you don't have to repeat. But in the first bracha, Magen Avraham, what made it special? Said Moshe in the Torah, because it has those words, Godol Hagiva V'Anoyer, Okela Gadol Hagiva V'Anoyer, the words Moshe Rabbeinu used to describe Hashem, and that's everything. The Pasuk says, Mi Yamalel B'Rot Hashem, who can describe Hashem? Only someone who knows Hashem. Well, that was Moshe. So Moshe had that ability nobody else had. And the Anshe Knesset Agdola, so before the Anshe Knesset Agdola came, we were in trouble. Came along the Babylonians, came along the Romans. When the Babylonians came along, that was Daniel. So what did Daniel say? Look, we say Akela Gadol, Gibor, but look at this. Where is he? Where is this Gadol and Gibor? We're getting knocked around. So he took the word Gadol out, Gibor out. Then later on, came the next generation came the Romans. So the next person said, and Yeshua said, where is this awesome God you're talking about? So he took out Nora. So for generations, those two words weren't there. Came the Anshe Knesset Agdola, even though diminished, as we said, you know what they said, we have to have a vision for the future. This is all from Hashem. Hashem has a picture. He has a picture that isn't limited to a few generations, all of history and post-history, whatever was, whatever will be. And we have to believe, even though we're going through hard times, this will not be the worst of times. This is going to happen again and again for the next 3,000 years, 2,000 years. It's going to happen again and again. And how are we going to survive? You know how we're going to survive? Because Hashem still is. He has given us the ability to survive all the challenges of history, all the persecutions. We're going to survive it. And we know we're going to survive it because Hashem said so. And therefore, he is still Hakel Hagod Lagiva Anoyer. And so because the Anshe Knesset Agdola gave him back his title, the words were used, Hechziru Torah Liyishno, they gave him back his original title. That's why they called Anshe Knesset Agdola. Now comes the punchline, though. But it was diminished. It wasn't the Torah before. Before we said there was 100% passing on. There wasn't now. Everything had changed. Everything had changed. The generations had changed. So you know what the most that they could do? They decided to put together what they thought was absolutely essential, important, etc., and could do without it. And they said three things from the whole Torah. It said three things.
Dad, you put yourself on mute. We can't hear you. Press the button.
I just pressed it.
Okay, now you're fine. Now you've okay, you're back on. Okay.
Right. So here where we are now. So now we're coming over here to the answeringness of the etc. And and at the end of the day, they had to deliver a message that was for their generation. And hate Amru Shloshadon. They said Shloshadon. We don't know why they chose these three things. We don't have to necessarily connect it to each other. But of course, one could learn the next part of this mission for a lifetime and never get past it, because hundreds of Sforim have written on these three things. Shloshadon. But let me just see what I want to add over here. Rabbi Tanzer wrote a nice sefer from Pirkei Avot, and he also has quite a bit of history. So he says the period of the Zakanim began with Koleb ben Yefuneh, was a colleague of Yeshiva, and lasted through the Shotim, ending with the death of the last judge, who was Eli. The elders were not necessarily old men, but they had acquired wisdom, and whoever has wisdom is the Chacham, right? And then they passed over to the prophets, starting with Shmuel. Shmuel Hanavi was the first, and went over to Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, who lived into the second temple. And the last prophets were members of the Great Assembly, and they were also Nevi'im among them. They were Ezra, Nehemiah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Zerubbabel, Shealtiel, Mordechai, etc., etc. And one of the last ones, or the last one, was Shimon HaTzadik, who the next mission is about. It was the time of the second mission. All right. Now the members of the Great Assembly realized they were not Nevi'im. They didn't have the openness and the vision and the picture the others had. So what did they realize they had to do? We had to get ready for a Golah. We had to get ready for living in the Golus. Jews would not have the clear tie they had with the Hamikdash, with Hashem. They couldn't go to the Beit Hamikdash and bring their kabbonos and connect with Hashem as they did. So what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? It can only get worse. It can get worse, it'll get lost, and we'll have nothing. So they came along and they said, we have to create a program, a structure for Jewish life. And that's what they did. Most of what we call Yiddishkeit, they made. They gave us the structure. First of all, they told us that we daven. You have to daven to Hashem. The way we connect with Hashem is davening. Well, how's davening? Well, basically, the most important part of davening is, of course, Shemona Esrei. And they told us what to say, Shemona Esrei. They gave us a language. And not only the language, but the structure. We start with 3 brachos, praising Hashem. We end with 3 brachos, thanking Hashem. And then we have 13 brachos in the middle that are requesting from Hashem everything in the world we can think of. If Al Pi Kabbalah, it's all in those 13 brachos. Quite a thing. If people of diminished stature, that quite a vision, quite a gift. They introduced us Kiddush to bring in Shabbos, Avdolah, say goodbye to Shabbos. So many of the things that we take for granted as the structure of Yiddishkeit, the answer gave us this. In other words, they saw that the day of the temple would come to an end, and we have to be able to move forward without it. And this was their contribution to make all this happen. All right? Okay. And therefore, what was paramount, as I said before, is they added the word back. Hashem is. He is. And I told you from Yaakov Emden last time, others quote the sending, that no Jew can say, if I lived in the generation of Moshe, I'd be a good, firm Jew. Because I would have seen God. I would have seen I would have seen 10 Makot. I would have seen Egypt turned on its head. No Jew can say that, because you did see Jewish survival. And Jewish survival for 2,000 years without a homeland, without a home, persecuted, no place to relax, no place to put your head down, etc. And we still survived. That's as big as any of those miracles, and maybe bigger. Maybe bigger. And Yaakov and those people said this before the Shoah. Before the Shoah. But we didn't imagine such things could happen. All right? So here we are. So now the members of the Knesset are here, and they're trying to give the Jewish people principles that will help us in the future. They came with three principles. And let's go look back at the language of the mission again. We'll read the three. It will take us this year and the next one to get through the three, okay? But we'll get through them in the two shiurim. So what do they say? Here we are. They gave us three things, three principles, they said. And those will say Pirkei Avot on Shabbos in the summertime. Repeat this every number of weeks as we repeat Pirkei Avot. What were the three things? They said, be very deliberate in judgment. Okay. Second thing they said, have many students. And the third thing they said is, make a fence around the Torah. In other words, the Torah is the law, it's Hashem's word, but we're going to make mistakes. We're going to encroach on it. We're going to get too close to it. We need barriers. We need fences. So make fences to keep you away from the Torah. Make a fence called muktzah to stop you from breaking Shabbos. Make fences called for marriages to stop you from doing incest, etc., and so on, right through. So they came up with three ideas. Now, the first thing, obviously, is the first one of the three. What did they say? They said, be deliberate in judgment, which obviously leads you to believe we're talking about judges. So we're talking about judges. Not everybody's a judge. Most people are not judges for that matter. So what do you mean judges? Why is one of the three principles have to do with judges, which refer to a person who's dying in a bedin or something similar? We're not. All right. So let me just right. So first of all, take judges as it is. We don't have to do acrobatics. We're trying to do acrobatics. Right? The point is this. What is a judge, and how does a judge come to a decision? All right. So the answer said that when a judge is about to give a decision, having soon about him, be deliberate. What does deliberate mean? Slow. In Hebrew they say savlanut. Biggest test of a judge is patience. Don't be in a hurry, because in a hurry you're going to make mistakes. If you feel that you're under pressure, right? First of all, the halacha was concerned with Ina Din that you shouldn't draw the judgment out so that the victim or the person suffers too much. You have to be deliberate. You have to be careful, calm, and know that you have studied the issue from all angles. When you say all angles, it includes compromise. There's an opinion here that says no judge should rule unless he believes he has compromise and didn't succeed and can't succeed. Then he's allowed to rule. Otherwise, compromise is part of law. If you compromise, everybody gets something. If you go for the core law itself, some will get it all, some will get nothing, some will get hurt. So Sunnah Badin means savlanut. What does savlanut mean? You never see the whole picture at first glance. You think you see it. In other words, the more you think about a case overnight, or whatever it is, however the context of the judgment is, the more you think about it, the more angles you're going to see that might change your mind. You might be barking up the wrong tree. You might want to quit and you shouldn't be quitting. You might want to convict and you shouldn't be convicting. But if you look at it again and again, carefully, slowly, with giving it your full attention, all that you have, you'll get it. You'll get it. As what they said, you'll get it. That's the key word, part of the process. You'll get it. All right, let's see. All right. Yeshaya Novi, in the first chapter of Yeshaya, Chazon Yeshaya, which we read on Erev Tisha B'Av, the chapter before Tisha B'Av, you know what Yeshaya says? Yeshaya says the following pasuk. We're talking about Yerushalayim, which was under siege and about to end. He said about Yerushalayim, he said, Tzedek Yolimba, justice used to live in her, but Atamaratzim, now murderers. Now murderers. Justice used to live in Yerushalayim, but now murderers. And what does that mean? The Vilna Gaon says that people would come to Yerushalayim for justice, says the Vilna Gaon, and guess what? The judges took their time. They believed the longer they looked at it, there might be new evidence. They might come up with something to acquit, something to let the guy off the hook. But once they felt they had to render a decision now, they became murderers. They couldn't see the whole case. They couldn't give the defendant the time and the patience he needed, etc., etc. Okay? In other words, not to give itself time is a problem. Second of all, patience and judgment, as I said a minute ago, some people say a compromise. And there's a mission that says later on, a person who keeps away from judgment. In other words, if you believe in compromise, what does it say? He keeps free of hatred, robbery, and false oaths. All those things in a compromise. Well, it's a great thing to compromise. That everybody goes away with something, and so on and so forth. You can only compromise if you are relaxed, if you are, what's the word, deliberate. You don't feel rushed. No one is standing on top of you, and you have to rule now. If you have to rule now, you're in trouble. You're going to make mistakes for sure. All right? And, okay. There's a Gemara of Metzia that said Yerushalayim was destroyed only because the Botei didn't engage in Torah. In other words, they only passed according to Allah. They didn't try to compromise. Compromise is an ideal. Compromise is a goal. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. At another point of view, I'm actually quoting Rabbi Lau's Sefer here. This is an advice to young Talmidei Chacham. Young Chacham who wish to become the Yodim and judges. It says, be careful. There's a Gemara based on Posuk and Mishlei. It says, where is the Soita? It says, Harbe Chalolom Hipilo. Harbe Chalolom Hipilo means she has cast down many corpses. Harbe Chalolom Hipilo, she means justice. The rule of law has made many corpses. What does that mean, many corpses? It refers to a Torah scholar who delivers a legal ruling when he's not competent to do so. When the dayan is not competent to be a dayan and he rules anyhow, he's going to do murder. He'll go totally wrong because it's not the way to judge. It's not the way for a judge to behave, and so on. And then, of course, you have okay, that's it. I think that's as far as I want to go. This, I had to hear something from my palm. A very, very distinguished. There's a Yeshiva Torah Das, passed away in the last decade or so. Rapon, very, very special man. Very special man, okay? And he was a Yeshiva in Torah Das. I was only a student of the primary school, the elementary school Torah Das. He was in the high school as Rosh Yeshiva, and he remained there for probably all of his life. And it was most of my life he was there. So a very ripe old age, and he was beloved. He was famous for his Friday schmoozing, his Friday sichot, in which he gave advice. He gave advice to children, to the students for all time. They loved it. His students made a book out of it, and the book is available today at all at Jewish bookshops all over the world. I would say, right? Sorry, that's what I lost them. I have. Right. Right. So he begins his essay on the Misunim Badin, by Palm, by quoting that Bartanur that I mentioned to you the other day, that since the wise men of the world all wrote books of character building, morality, this is what Ovis is about as well. The Tana begins the Mishnah, Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. Don't get wrong. These are not words of wise men. These are the words of Hashem. The words of Hashem given to Moshe at Sinai as they come down to us. In other words, this is it. This is authentic. This is the real thing, and don't be taken in by the forgeries. Right? So this is etc. The Vilna Gaon says, and the Vilna Gaon, of course, with a brilliant commentary on Pirkei Avot, he says that in his commentary he proves every Mishnah in Pirkei Avot is based on the Posuk in the Torah or a Posuk in Tanakh. Every Mishnah is based on a Posuk. It's there. You got to find it. You have to look for it. And you find it. All right. And again, and here, Palm really is stressing what we talked about a few moments ago. Whenever you're talking about leadership, it has to be careful, deliberate, and any leadership which allows itself to be put under pressure is not real. It's not real. It's going to be wrong. It's going to make mistakes. It's going to make mistakes because we're not at our best. But we feel we have to do something now, this minute. We're not at our best. We're not giving our best shot. It's not our best logic. It's not our best thinking. And found in his talk over here says there are some people who are knowledgeable in halachic matters but make mistakes because they don't have the patience. Some people have the patience, they don't have the knowledge. Either one's going to make mistakes. So in other words, one has to have both the knowledge and the patience. And the patience means, unless I'm sure, I really don't see the problem from all sides. And Mesilas Yesharim has chapters on this where he says, has chapters where he says everything in life needs to be looked at 10 times. Because whatever you think you see, you don't see. You may be misleading yourself 100 times. He says this very sharply, but this is part of Misunim Badin. If you don't allow yourself the time, the patience, etc., you're going to make many, many mistakes. And we'll leave it over here right now, etc., etc. Oh, he says in education as well. A Rebbe or Yeshiva is teaching a class. He thinks the kids have a problem. So he gives a strong talk. And after the talk, he looks, everything's the same. Nothing changed. The kids don't look different. So you might think you're right, that nothing happened. Then you may be right too. Maybe nothing did happen. On the other hand, nothing happens quickly. Every teacher knows, every Rebbe knows, every Chavrusa knows, if you want to achieve something, whether it's in a classroom with a Talmud, or whether it's in outreach, when you try to bring people close to Yiddishkeit, no talk is that good enough that you person's life in a minute. You may turn them on, you may get them excited, but not good enough for a lifetime. A lifetime is again and again and again to reconfirm, to underline, etc., until the person realizes himself that that's he, that's the real he. And then it's him. Then you run with it. But until that's thing, so in other words, you have to have the information, etc., and the sablanut. Okay. Okay. How are we doing time-wise? No, what's it?
You've got another 10 minutes and then there are going to be questions.
There are going to be questions. Oh. All right. Let's see, 10 minutes. So I'm not going to start the next one.
Start the questions then. Start the questions.
All right, if you want to ask questions now, all right. Yeah, hang on. One thing I saw before, I didn't mention it. Right. Again, to repeat, Misunabadin, be patient. Be patient. And this is Tversky, and I'm quoting Rabbi Tversky's interpretation of the Mishnah. He says, if you're not patient, you know what's going to happen? You're going to end up saying things that can be used against you. In other words, you think you're judging somebody else. You're actually be judging yourself. And you have to eat humble words when you realize you're talking about yourself. And there's no better example of that, he says, than when Nosna Novi told David HaMelech the story about the wealthy person who had livestock, but he stole the only land of a poor neighbor because he had a guest and didn't want to use his own stuff. He stole the only land of a poor neighbor to feed his guest. So he shouldn't have to use his own. And David HaMelech heard it, and he says, well, that man's dead. Show me that man, I'm going to kill him. That's a crass crime. A man who does that deserves to die. And of course, Nosna Novi said this to as David HaMelech after the story of Uriah Achitzi, when he took his wife, Bathsheba as his wife, and Nosna Novi said to David, you are the man. You're the man. Atarish. You're the person. Imagine that. Imagine that. In other words, David wasn't deliberate. He should have thought how. He would have thought how. He would have realized, look into this. What is it all about? But at the end of the day, he put himself on the hot seat because of that. Okay, if you want to ask some questions, let's try. I don't know if I can answer them, but we try.
Questions. What do you want to say?
Let me just say one more thing. Next time we start, I told you that Mommy has a cousin, Bela Haber. His husband Yaakov Haber is a well-known Talmud Chacham who's written Sforim on Pirkei Avot himself, and in the English edition translation of Rabbeinu Yonah is of course one of the famous Rishonim on Pirkei Avot. There's an introduction to this sefer written by Rabbi Haber, which I want to share with you. And Rabbi Haber says Rabbi Yonah is a Rishon. There are many other Rishonim. Many have written on Pirkei Avot, Rashi, Rambam, everybody's written on Pirkei Avot. But he says there is none like Rabbi Yonah, and he tries to show how. And I thought I'd go through that introduction with you, so perhaps we can go to Rabbi Yonah, because you see, a Rishon doesn't say fancy words because he gives you the heart of the matter, right to the point. And if the Rishon is the one recognized as the expert, that's another thing altogether. A Rishon, of course, is 12th century, goes back to the 12th century, and that's when I was Rishonim lived. Okay, any questions? Don't make him too hard.
And everyone talk at once. What's happening?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Dad.
Okay,
Well, there's a Kainim greater than the Nevi'im.
What?
There's a Kainim, were they greater than the Nevi'im?
It's hard to tell. They were close to them. They must have been, probably could have been the same. Could have been the same or a little less, because the earlier they were, the bigger they were. But they were the immediate followers. That wasn't too much time. But imagine there was a time when people knew everything they heard.
Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu's kids or Aaron's kids why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu's kids get the
All right. So that question was answered, but when we gave the reason why Yeshua did get it, right? In other words, Yeshua's commitment to Moshe Rabbeinu, and not to Moshe Rabbeinu personally, but to the Torah, was of such a nature that he didn't drop one thing from everything Moshe taught him, that made him automatically the heir. Now the Yomish B'Torah Chorel, it's called Shimushi Shal Torah. They still talk about it in all the term to this day. When a Talmud has that identity of the Rebbe, that it becomes virtually a part of his soul, a part of his being. That is your guarantee for truth when you know you're on the right track. And if you look at it that way, it was no insult. It was no insult to Moshe that his kid didn't get it. Of course, he would have liked it. Everyone would have liked to see his children take over, but it doesn't always go that way. And this is our Pi Hashem. We all done our Pi Hashem. We have no doubt that Moshe didn't know his own kids on his own decision.
Meantime, when you
go ahead.
No, Dad, you carry on.
No, go ahead.
Are you starting the next Mishnah on Wednesday?